Well, g'day guys, and welcome back to Cars and Stuff. Found this bit of an interesting old calendar about the Australian Grand Prix in 1955 that was held at Port Wakefield, which is a seaside town located about 100 kilometres north of the city of Adelaide in South Australia. And this old calendar was made to represent to commemorate the 50-year anniversary in 2005, as you can see, and it's got a souvenir calendar for 2006, but it's got a bit of a drawing of the actual track, and I think that's supposed to be Jack Brabham, or Sir Jack Brabham's car that he raced at one time. So they've got the curves and the straights all named there, but we'll have a look at the track in more detail as we go through and have a look. I just thought it might be interesting to have a look at anyway, because Adelaide did host the Grand Prix for quite a few years before it went to Melbourne. So I just thought it was very, very interesting that a little town north of Adelaide did host the Australian Grand Prix at one stage. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So in the beginning it says, and it's got a bit of a advertisement sign there from 1955, I think it is. Yep, 1955. And there's another car and motorcycle races held at Port Wakefield. So yeah, as I said, I think they obviously did use it for both car and motorcycle races, but as the story goes here about how they virtually envisaged the track on a Saturday night and started pegging it out the next day, which was quite amazing. And it said the first race was to be held on the new circuit was on January 1st, 1953, and in October the 10th, 1955, the Sporting Car Club of South Australia held the 20th Australian Grand Prix, which was won by Jack Brabham, knighted in 1966. So there you go. That's that's the bit of a racetrack that was sort of envisaged, what would you say, one day and sort of pegged out the next day. They can't do that now. So next we see the layout of the circuit, and it's got its bits and pieces there about what the length of the track is, 1.3 miles or 2.1 kilometres. The surface was bitumen. The surface type was, that was the surface type, was a purpose-built track, and it was located 2 kilometres east of Port Wakefield. Now they've got here 60 kilometres north of Adelaide. Well, I think they meant 60 miles because I do know that Port Wakefield is approximately between 99 and 100 kilometres north of Adelaide. So we'll say it was 60 miles north of Adelaide. And the status was the last race was obviously run in 1961. And they've got a layout here of the whole track circuit there, where the spectators and the different names of the straights and bends and different the whole layout of the circuit, what it was like. And they've even got a bit of a blow up section there of what the grid was like, and the pits and all their other bits and pieces that they had associated with the racetrack. So it was quite an elaborate setup, really, when you look at it. And here's an aerial photograph of the track itself, and you can see not a very complicated looking track, but nevertheless they obviously assumed that it was good enough to hold a Grand Prix there at one stage or another. And then of course we go into some statistics about the 20th Australian Grand Prix that was held at Port Wakefield. It was an 80-lap race, or 104 miles, or 167.3 kilometres long. And they've got the list of entries with their names of the entrance and the types of vehicles that they were racing with. And on this one we've got the grid there, so you might recognize some of the names or might not. Some of them don't look very familiar to me, but a couple I've heard of, especially Sir Jack Brabham, of course. And there he was there. He was the winning driver, of course, in his Cooper Bristol. And then he also recorded the fastest lap by the look of it. And there's all some of the retirements that happened during the race as well, and their respective vehicles. And here's a bit of a racing lineup at Port Wakefield. Some very, very interesting looking cars there. Looks a bit like Austins and all sorts of other things in the background too. And this old Hudson Terraplane, taking a bit of a fishtail by the look of it. A bit of an action shot. As you can see, not too much safety equipment around, you know, pretty much in the middle of a farmer's paddock, which the track was. And here, of course, is another action shot of open wheelers racing. And you can see the hay bales sort of marking out the edge of the racetrack. Something you wouldn't see today. And another bit of an open wheeler, or a couple of open wheelers there, and that one looks like he's come off the bitumen and onto the dirt by the look of him. But that's a pretty cool shot too. And here's probably one of my favourite pages, because it's got classic Holdens. And of course the first Holden is an FJ that obviously was raced by Clem Smith. And I do remember the name Clem Smith because there was a used car lot not far from my house that had his name all over it. And this other one here, or A.L. Possum Kipling, was another long-term resident at Port Wakefield that I know about. So yeah, and he's racing, though obviously he was racing in an FX. And there's another FX Holden, of course. And of course another one of Possum Kipling in his FJ that he used in his Red X trial races, which apparently were very big back in the day. Seen a few footages of those, but yeah, I think he tended to do quite well in the old Holdens too. But yeah, very interesting stuff, and great to see these old Holdens too and what they were using them for. And then of course we go to another picture from even a bit further back to 1953, from the 1st of January, where they had some open wheelers. So it would have been one of the, or was the very first race at the Port Wakefield circuit. And you can just see the people standing on the edge there. No safety barriers, no nothing. And it looks like a bit of a milk can or something there, marking the edge of the track on that one. And Reg Hunt in his Maserati. How cool is that? They certainly... here's another one with hay bales. Moments after the Grand Prix starts. Yeah, so that would have been in 1955, I would assume, that one. But yeah, just looking at these old pictures and the race drivers of the back in the day, how they look like they're sitting on top of the car. I mean, nowadays they look like they're in, you can't even hardly see the driver because they look like they're part of the car or embedded in the car. But yeah, it just goes to show you how much in, what, 60, 70 years things have changed very much, haven't they? And we've got some more racing shots, as it says. Racing. This bloke in his big caddy. And at first, when I first glanced at this, I thought it was a Morris Minor. but turns out it's a Renault 750 racing at Port Wakefield. That's a very cool shot too. And obviously you could drive up to the track and sit in your car and watch. And this one caught my eye too. Bill Craig spins his Alta Holden. Now I need to know a bit more about that, or if anybody knows more about Alta Holden, whether it was a Holden or whether they used a Holden bits in it, please let me know. Love to know more, a bit more about it. And of course the racing Renault again. What would a race meeting be without some form of tragedy or disaster with cars catching on fire? So you can see this one is quite well alight, and I think these images were reproduced from the newspaper, so they're not quite as crisp as some of the others, but it says fire attended in 19 Ross's 500 owned and raced by E.G. Ross on the 12th October 12th 1954. And you can see the state-of-the-art milk cans and, what would you say, almost like little garden hoses trying to put out that massive fire by the look of it. Not a good look. And here's another one that rolled over on the track, so the ambulance people were attending to him in 1955. And this picture here is supposed to be the start of the 20 lap third qualifying heat before the Grand Prix. And if anybody knows Port Wakefield, it's very salt bushy flat country out there, hence why they probably thought it was a good idea to build a racetrack out there, because of the flat ground. But yeah, to hold a Grand Prix there, that's quite an amazing thing, really. And yeah, obviously they didn't have all the pomp and ceremony like they do now before the race starts, you know. A little bit sparse and empty by the look of it, although I think you can just sort of see, I'm not sure whether it's got on there that it's got the first bank or something, a bit of advertising there, but not all the glitz and glamour like they have today. And here's Sir Jack Bremer in his unusual Cooper Bristol at Port Wakefield. And there he is, first place, with a Reg Hunt close behind him. But yeah, it's quite cool to look at some of these old racing photos, as much as it is to look at other cars from that era. But and to think that yeah, a little town up north of Adelaide once held the Australian Grand Prix. And of course it says winning smiles. And of course a picture of Jack Brabham after he won the 1955 Grand Prix, I assume. So it says on here, first place Jack Brabham, Cooper Bristol, second place Reg Hunt, and third place Doug Whiteford in his Lego Talbot. And they've got the times there of how long it took them to complete the circuit, and the fastest laps, and of course the all-important trophies, which you can see there. Bit different to what they have now. It says valued at £100. But that is just quite a good bit of history, I'd say. Well, okay guys, and that about wraps it up from a look at the 50th anniversary of the Australian Grand Prix that was held in Port Wakefield, which, as I said, is a small town located about 100 kilometres north of Adelaide. And I do know Port Wakefield quite well, actually. Have a strong family connection to the place, and I have actually been out to the track. Not that there's not much left now. There's a few remnants of bitumen on the ground, a few buried tyres on the corners, and bits of metal, and that's about it. Not really a great deal to see now after all those years. So I'll say thanks again for watching. If you've liked this type of thing, don't forget to give it a like. Thank you for liking, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers for now, guys.